somewhere in your home, tucked away in a dusty drawer, an old cigar box, or a forgotten collection of rocks. There could be a stone worth more than a month's salary, a broken bar more than a year's savings, a broken bar maybe even enough to change the direction of your life. Most people have no idea what it looks like. Most people have already thrown it away, and that's exactly why this story matters right now. Because what if the most valuable stone you'll ever own isn't locked in a museum, a broken bar, or displayed in a luxury showroom, a broken bar, but sitting quietly among ordinary rocks you've never bothered to examine closely? What most people don't know is that one of the rarest gemstones on Earth was discovered not in a glamorous mine, not in some exotic jungle, but in the hills of California, and for decades, ordinary Americans unknowingly carried it home in their pockets, mistaking it for nothing special. This is the story of benitoite, and once you hear it, you may never look at your old stones the same way again. The first thing to understand is that benitoite is not supposed to exist the way it does. In the world of gemstones, rarity usually comes from remote places of faraway countries, deep underground, guarded by difficulty and danger. But benitoite breaks every expectation. It was discovered in 1907 in San Benito County, California, by a man who believed he had found something else entirely. At the time, it didn't sparkle like a diamond, it didn't glow like emerald, it didn't demand attention, it looked a broken bar ordinary. And that's where the story turns shocking, because that ordinary-looking blue stone turned out to be something the scientific world had never seen before, a brand-new mineral, a gemstone found in only one place on Earth. To this day, gem-quality benitoite has never been discovered anywhere else in the world in meaningful quantities. Not Africa, not Asia, not South America, only one small, now closed mining area in California. Let that sink in. An American gemstone, a one-location stone, finite, exhausted, gone, and yet, thousands of people still don't know what it is. There's a story collectors whisper about a retired school teacher who inherited a small box of stones from her grandfather. He was a hobby rockhound, the kind of man who picked up interesting pieces on road trips and tossed them into coffee cans. For years, the box sat unopened in her closet. One afternoon, out of boredom, she decided to sort through it. Most of the stones were exactly what you'd expect: a quartz, feldspar, bits of shale. Then she noticed a small, deep blue crystal, sharp-edged, almost glowing under the light. She nearly threw it away, but something stopped her. She took it to a local gemologist. The room went quiet. The expert asked where she got it. Then he asked again, slower. That stone later sold for thousands of dollars. And here's the cliffhanger most people don't see coming. That kind of discovery is still happening today. Benitoite is valuable because of a perfect storm of factors that almost never come together. First, its rarity. Gem-quality benitoite is considered rarer than diamond. Not rarer than diamonds you see in stores, but rarer than diamonds in nature. Once the original California mine shut down, that was it. No new supply, no future discoveries to flood the market. Second, its color. Benitoite has an electric sapphire blue hue that, under the right light, appears to glow from within. Some stones even fluoresce under ultraviolet light, glowing an eerie chalky blue-white that leaves collectors speechless. That fluorescence alone has made some specimens museum-worthy. Third, its crystal structure. Benitoite often forms in sharp, triangular crystals. Unlike most gemstones, to trained eyes, that shape is a giveaway. To untrained eyes, it's just another strange rock. And this is the part collectors never talk about openly. Many of the best benitoite specimens never came from jewelers. They came from regular people, miners' families, old collections, garage sales, estate boxes, people who didn't know what they had. Identifying benitoite isn't about luck. It's about knowing what to look for before it's too late. Color is the first clue. True benitoite is usually a vivid blue to blue-violet, not dull, not cloudy. When light hits it, there's a brightness that feels almost unnatural. The clarity matters too. High-value stones are transparent to near transparent, with crisp edges and sharp crystal faces. Weight can be deceptive. Benitoite is denser than it looks. A small stone may feel heavier than expected for its size. Texture matters as well, and natural crystals often appear embedded in a white or gray matrix, commonly nitrilite, which many people mistake for plain rock and discard without a second thought. Origin is critical. Almost all valuable benitoite traces back to California. If a stone has documentation or family history tied to that region, especially early to mid-20th century, the odds become much more interesting. But here's where the mystery deepens. Not all benitoite is created equal. Most pieces found are tiny, fractured, or cloudy. Interesting, but not valuable. The stones that sell for serious money are the exceptions. Large, clean, gem-quality crystals, faceted stones with intense color, complete crystal clusters that look like nature's own sculpture. Low-end benitoite specimens might sell for a few $100s. Attractive, but modest, mid-range stone as a clean crystals or small faceted gems often sell in the thousands. And then there are the elite examples, museum-grade specimens, stones with size, clarity, and provenance. These have sold for tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes more, especially as collectors realize there will never be more. And here's where urgency enters the story. The market for rare American gemstones is heating up. Collectors are shifting away from mass-produced stones and toward finite, historically significant materials. Benitoite sits at the center of that trend. Once a collector acquires a great piece, it often disappears into a private collection for decades. Supply tightens, prices rise quietly. What most people don't realize is that time works against ignorance. Every year, more old collections are discarded, more stones are thrown away because someone didn't know what they were holding. Once they're gone forever. There are warnings worth hearing. Benitoite is often confused with sapphire, spine, or even glass. Imitations exist. Misidentified stones circulate online. That's why professional verification matters. A single test under ultraviolet light can reveal clues most people miss. A trained gemologist can separate a life-changing find from a pretty blue rock. But here's the emotional truth beneath all of this. Benitoite represents more than money. It represents the idea that value doesn't always announce itself, that history can sit quietly in your home, that something overlooked can suddenly become the most important object you own. There's something deeply American about that idea. A stone discovered by accident, overlooked by experts at first, carried home by ordinary people, and now, nearly gone. If you inherited stones from a parent or grandparent, a broken bar. If you collected rocks as a child, a broken bar. If you ever picked something up and thought, this looks interesting, this is your moment to look again, slowly, carefully, with respect, because what if the next story collectors whisper about a broken bar is yours? Before you dismiss what you own, examine it. Before you toss that old stone, check it. The difference between nothing and something extraordinary is often knowledge. The market is moving, the stones are disappearing into collections, and the window for accidental discovery is closing. Somewhere nearby, a deep blue crystal may be waiting for you to finally recognize its worth. And when you're ready, there are other stones like these, other hidden treasures with stories just as powerful, just as rare, and just as capable of changing everything you thought you knew about what you own. Stay curious, stay watchful, and whatever you do, broken bar, don't throw away your stones. What most people don't know is that one of the rarest gemstones on earth doesn't sparkle loudly, it doesn't announce itself, it hides quietly, waiting for someone to recognize it before it disappears forever. This is the story of Red Beryl, the stone most people have never heard of, the stone collectors quietly obsess over, the stone that has turned ordinary people into stunned owners of something worth more than their monthly paycheck, sometimes more than their car. And it all starts with a mistake. Years ago, a middle-aged man cleaning out his late father's garage in the American West nearly tossed a coffee can filled with rough stones into the trash. His father had been a casual rockhound, the kind who picked up unusual pieces from desert trips and forgot about them. Nothing special, at least that's what he thought. The stones were dull, reddish, uneven, not pretty, not polished, not impressive, but something made him hesitate. One stone, slightly heavier than it looked, caught the light in a strange way. Not bright red, not ruby red, deeper, darker, almost wine-colored. He slipped it into his pocket instead of the trash. That small decision changed everything. Weeks later, after a casual stop at a gem show, a dealer froze when he saw it. "You have no idea what this is," the dealer said quietly. That was the moment the story turned shocking, because Red Beryl, sometimes called bixbyite, is not just rare, it is one of the rarest gemstones ever discovered. Experts estimate that for every one Red Beryl crystal, there are over 100,000 diamonds. Let that sink in, 100,000. And yet, this stone doesn't live behind glass at luxury boutiques. It lives in old collections, in inherited boxes, in jars labeled rocks, in places people never look. Red Beryl's story begins in one of the harshest, least forgiving landscapes in the United States. The Wawa Mountains of Utah, a dry, volcanic region where blistering heat and ancient lava flows created conditions so precise, so unlikely, that they've almost never occurred anywhere else on Earth. This is not a gemstone that formed easily. It required a rare combination of beryllium-rich magma, manganese for color, and just the right pressure and cooling conditions. Change one variable, and Red Beryl simply doesn't exist. That's why it's found in only one primary location on the planet, not Africa, not Asia, not South America. One place, and even there, crystals are usually tiny, fragile, often fractured. Many are unsuitable for cutting. When gem-quality material does appear, it's an event collectors whisper about. But here's where the mystery deepens. For decades, Red Beryl wasn't famous. It wasn't marketed. It wasn't pushed into mainstream jewelry. In fact, many early specimens were misidentified entirely. Some were labeled as red emeralds, others as spinel, some as nothing at all, and that means many pieces slipped through history unnoticed. What most people don't know is that Red Beryl often doesn't look valuable at first glance. Unlike diamonds or sapphires, it doesn't always flash brilliance in rough form. In raw condition, it can appear dull, uneven, almost unimpressive. That's why it was ignored. But under magnification, under proper light, everything changes. True Red Beryl has a color unlike any other gemstone. Not pink, not ruby, a saturated red with hints of raspberry and deep crimson, caused by manganese replacing aluminum in its crystal structure. The color isn't surface level, it comes from within, rich and intense. The crystals themselves are usually hexagonal, with sharp edges when intact. They feel heavier than expected for their size, denser than common quartz or glass. Many show natural inclusions, tiny internal fingerprints of how violently rare their formation was. Clarity matters, but perfection is not expected. In fact, flawless Red Beryl is almost unheard of, and this is where collectors lean in, because rarity changes the rules. In common gemstones, clarity drives price. In Red Beryl, existence alone creates value. A small, included stone can still be worth thousands of dollars per carat if the color is right and the origin is confirmed. And yes, Origin matters more than people realize. Authentic red beryl almost always traces back to Utah. Stones claiming other origins raise immediate suspicion. This isn't a gem found casually across continents. Its birthplace is specific, and that specificity is part of its power. But here's the part collectors never talk about openly. The market for red beryl is heating up, quietly, as high-end collectors exhaust traditional investments and turn toward tangible assets. Ultra-rare gemstones are becoming financial refuges. Red beryl sits at the top of that list, not because it's trendy, but because it's finite. There is no new discovery waiting, no massive deposit yet to be found. What exists already exists, and much of it is locked away in private collections. Prices reflect this reality. Lower quality, very small faceted stones may sell for several $100s per carat, but fine examples, with deep color and decent clarity, routinely sell for thousands per carat. Exceptional pieces have crossed into 5 figures, for a stone smaller than a pea, and this is where fear quietly enters the room, because every year, more people unknowingly discard these stones. They clean out estates, they sell mixed mineral lots for pennies, they throw away what looks ordinary, and once it's gone forever. If you own inherited stones, old rock collections, or minerals picked up decades ago, there are subtle signs worth paying attention to. Red beryl is never transparent like glass. It resists scratching more than common materials. It doesn't fade under light. Its red is stable, rich, and unmistakable when compared side by side with imitations. Synthetic versions exist, but collectors can tell. Lab-grown stones lack the natural imperfections, the internal tension lines, the story written inside the crystal, and that story matters, because owning red beryl isn't just about money. It's about possessing a geological miracle, a moment when Earth aligned perfectly, briefly, and never quite repeated itself. The man with the coffee can didn't become rich overnight. He didn't quit his job, but when he sold a single small stone to a collector, it paid off lingering debts. It brought relief, stability, a sense that his father had unknowingly passed down something extraordinary. That's the quiet power of this stone. It doesn't shout, it whispers, and the whisper says this: check before you discard, look before you assume, because history has proven, again and again, that the most valuable things often hide in plain sight. Right now, as demand increases and supply remains frozen, red beryl continues its silent rise. Collectors are watching, dealers are searching, and stones once dismissed are being re-evaluated under professional eyes. This is not a market driven by hype, it's driven by scarcity, and scarcity always wins. So before you toss that old stone, before you dismiss that dull red crystal, before you sell that box of rocks for next to nothing, pause, because what you're holding might not just be a stone, it might be one of the rarest treasures on earth. And the difference between losing it and securing it could change your financial future. The next rare stone is already waiting to be uncovered, and if this story proves anything, it's that the most valuable discoveries often begin at home. Because this stone doesn't look dangerous, it doesn't announce its value, it doesn't sparkle like a diamond under store lights. In fact, most people would mistake it for nothing more than a reddish pebble, a souvenir, or a piece of costume jewelry. But collectors know the truth. And once you understand what this stone really is, you'll never look at your old rocks the same way again. This is the story of red beryl, one of the rarest gemstones on earth, a stone so scarce that most jewelers will never see one in their lifetime, a stone that has quietly turned ordinary people into accidental owners of 5-figure treasures, and a stone that may already be sitting somewhere in your home right now. What most people don't know is that red beryl is not just rare, it is astronomically rare, more rare than diamonds, more rare than emeralds, even more rare than many stones people already consider priceless. For every 150,000 diamonds mined, only one gemstone quality red beryl crystal is ever found. Let that sink in. And yet, because it was never aggressively marketed to the public, millions of Americans have unknowingly handled it, inherited it, or even thrown it away. And this is where the story turns shocking. The modern legend of red beryl often begins with normal people, not gem dealers, not billionaires, just everyday Americans cleaning out old homes, sorting through inherited collections, or organizing boxes left behind by parents and grandparents. One man in Utah nearly discarded a small, dull-looking red crystal he found wrapped in newspaper from the 1960s. He assumed it was a cheap souvenir from a roadside rock shop. It wasn't until a curious friend suggested having it examined that the truth emerged. That single stone, no larger than a fingernail, later sold privately for more than $12,000. And stories like that are not rare. Red beryl's journey begins deep beneath the earth, in conditions so extreme that nature almost never repeats them. Unlike most gemstones that form over wide regions, red beryl forms in only one primary location on the planet. The Wawa Mountains of Utah, not Africa, not South America, not Asia. Utah, a dry, unassuming range of rock that looks completely ordinary from the outside, yet hidden inside those volcanic rhyolite deposits is a chemical miracle so precise that scientists still struggle to fully explain it. Red beryl requires beryllium, manganese, aluminum, silicon, oxygen, and very specific pressure and temperature conditions to align perfectly. Change even one factor slightly, and the stone never forms. Instead of red, you get colorless beryl, or green beryl, or nothing at all. This is why red beryl is not found scattered across continents like sapphire or ruby. It is locked to one geological fingerprint, one place, one narrow window of creation. But here's the part collectors never talk about. Even in Utah, red beryl doesn't appear generously. Most crystals form small, fragile, imperfect, many shatter during extraction, many are too cloudy to cut, many are destroyed before anyone even realizes what they are. Fewer than 10% of mined red beryl crystals are suitable for faceting, and fewer still survive the cutting process without cracking under pressure. This is why gemstone quality red beryl is measured not just in carats, but in survival. Every finished stone represents dozens that never made it. Historically, red beryl was misidentified. Early miners thought it was red emerald. Others dismissed it as a curiosity. It wasn't until the mid-20th century that gemologists understood its true identity and rarity. By then, many early specimens were already lost, damaged, or sold for a fraction of their future value. Old collections from the 1940s, 50s, and 60s are especially important today, because they often contain stones acquired before red beryl's significance was fully understood. And that creates a dangerous gap between ownership and awareness. If you've ever inherited a box of stones, a jar of crystals, or a piece of red jewelry without documentation, you could already be holding red beryl without knowing it, especially if the stone was labeled vaguely as red emerald, red crystal, or not labeled at all. So how do you tell the difference? True red beryl displays a rich, intense red color, sometimes with hints of raspberry, cherry, or deep rose. It is not orange like garnet, it is not brownish like zircon, it is not dark wine-colored like ruby. Under proper lighting, red beryl has a vivid saturation that almost looks electric. Many stones show slight inclusions, tiny internal features that look like threads or feathers. These are normal, and often expected. Clarity matters, but perfection is not required. In fact, flawless red beryl is so rare that inclusions can actually help confirm authenticity. The stone has a glassy, vitreous luster when cut, and feels surprisingly heavy for its size due to its density. One of the biggest giveaways is size. If you see a large red stone being sold cheaply, it is almost certainly not red beryl. Most faceted red beryl stones weigh under 1 carat. Stones above 1 carat are considered exceptional. Stones above 2 carats are legendary, and this is where prices begin to climb. Low-quality or very small red beryl specimens may sell for a few $100s per carat, especially if they are included or poorly cut, but fine quality stones routinely sell for $5,000 to $10,000 per carat. Exceptional stones with rich color, good clarity, and documented Utah origin can exceed $15,000 per carat. Museum-quality examples, especially those over 1 carat, have sold privately for even more. Collectors are not just buying beauty, they are buying extinction, because red beryl mining has slowed dramatically. Environmental restrictions, limited access, and the sheer scarcity of viable material mean that fewer stones are entering the market each year. Unlike diamonds, there is no massive global supply waiting to be unleashed. What exists now is mostly what will ever exist, and that reality is driving quiet panic among serious collectors. Behind closed doors, high-end buyers are competing for stones that never reach public auctions. Private deals, estate sales, and direct acquisitions are becoming the primary battleground. Prices are climbing, but quietly. There is no hype cycle, no celebrity endorsements, just slow, relentless demand from people who understand geology, rarity, and long-term value. And this is why red beryl is so dangerous to ignore, because it doesn't scream wealth, it whispers it. There are warnings you need to hear. Red beryl is often confused with synthetic stones, glass, or treated materials. Some sellers intentionally mislabel other red gems to ride on its reputation. Authentic red beryl should always be verified by a reputable gemological lab. Origin matters, treatment matters, documentation matters, but here's the twist. If you already own one, especially an older specimen, you may be sitting on a stone acquired before treatments and synthetics flooded the market. Older stones often command higher trust and higher prices, especially if they came from known Utah sources or early collections. This is why experts urge people to check before they toss, sell, or give away old stones. That dusty red crystal in a cigar box. That odd ring no one wears anymore. That costume piece inherited from an aunt who loved rocks. These are exactly the places red beryl hides, and the market is heating up right now. As younger collectors enter the space and older collections are liquidated, awareness is spreading, but supply is not increasing. That imbalance creates pressure, the kind of pressure that turns overlooked stones into financial lifelines. The kind of pressure that makes today's ignored gem tomorrow's headline. Red beryl is not just a gemstone, it is a reminder that value doesn't always look valuable, that wealth sometimes hides in plain sight, that history leaves clues in the objects we inherit, dismiss, or overlook. So before you throw away that old stone, before you sell a collection for pennies, before you assume something is worthless because it doesn't sparkle like a diamond at broken bar stop, look again, because the difference between a red rock and a red beryl can be the difference between regret and relief. Check your stones, ask questions, get them evaluated, and remember, some of the rarest treasures in the world are already owned by people who don't yet know what they have. And if the stone surprised you, the next one may shock you even more. Stay with us, the rare stone market is changing fast, and the next discovery could be sitting even closer than you think. The Montana sapphire is not supposed to exist the way it does. For centuries, sapphire was a symbol of Old World wealth, tied to Asian riverbeds, Himalayan mountains, and European crowns. The idea that one of the world's most valuable gemstones could be hiding in the rivers and gravel of the American West sounded absurd, even impossible. And yet, that impossibility is exactly why so many people overlooked a broken bar and why so many fortunes slipped quietly through ordinary hands. What most people don't know is that some of the most valuable Montana sapphires were never cut, never mounted, never certified. They were kept as keepsakes, lucky stones, curiosities, paperweights, children's treasures found while fishing or hiking. And today, some of those same stones are worth more than a year's salary, a broken bar, sometimes far more. The story begins not in a vault or a museum, but in the late 1800s, when gold fever swept through Montana. Prospectors weren't looking for beauty, they were desperate for survival. Every pan of gravel was about food, shelter, and hope. And again, as they worked the rivers, they found strange blue and green crystals clogging their sluices. Heavy, hard, useless, or so they believed. These stones slowed gold recovery, so miners cursed them and tossed them aside. Some even threw them back into the river in frustration. But here's where the story turns shocking. Those worthless stones weren't junk at all. They were sapphires. American sapphires, among the purest and most naturally vibrant ever discovered. In places like Yogo Gulch, Rock Creek, and the Missouri River Basin, nature had quietly been crafting gemstones under conditions so rare that even seasoned geologists were stunned. Unlike many sapphires around the world, Montana sapphires often formed with exceptional clarity, unique coloration, and a natural elegance that didn't rely on artificial enhancement. Some were cornflower blue, others leaned into icy blues, soft teals, seafoam greens, steely grays, and rare violet hues that shifted under different light. For decades, nobody knew what to do with them. Early attempts to market Montana sapphires failed because jewelers didn't understand them. They weren't the deep royal blue people expected. They didn't look traditional, so the market dismissed them, and that dismissal became the greatest mistake in American gemstone history. Fast forward to a much quieter moment. More than a century later, a retired schoolteacher cleaning out her father's belongings finds a small glass jar wrapped in newspaper. Inside are several rough stones, dull with age, colors muted by dust. Her father had been a young man in Montana during the 1940s, working near a creek. He used to say he found pretty rocks. She almost throws them out, but something stops her, a weight to them. A strange way they catch the light. She brings them to a local jeweler, then a gemologist, then an auction house, and suddenly, the story no longer belongs to her alone, because those stones turn out to be untreated Montana sapphires. Natural color, excellent clarity, American origin. The final sale price quietly crosses into 5 figures, and this is the part collectors never talk about. Stories like this are not rare. Montana sapphires are valuable because they sit at the intersection of rarity, authenticity, and timing. The deposits are limited. The finest locations are either exhausted or heavily restricted. Yogo sapphires, in particular, are legendary for their naturally saturated blue color and uniform clarity. Unlike many sapphires on the global market, Yogos are almost always untreated. No heat, no color enhancement. What you see is what the earth made. Collectors pay a premium for that honesty. Color is everything. The most valuable Montana sapphires display vivid blues with excellent saturation, but not all value lies in blue alone. Teal sapphires, blending blue and green, have exploded in demand as modern collectors seek uniqueness over tradition. Soft pastel hues once ignored are now coveted for custom jewelry and investment collections. Stones that shift color slightly between daylight and indoor light create emotional impact, and emotion drives price. Clarity matters just as much. Montana sapphires are often cleaner than sapphires from many other regions, with fewer inclusions visible to the naked eye. A stone that looks sleepy or cloudy will always fall into the lower tier, but a crisp, lively stone, even if small, commands attention. Weight plays its role too. But here's a secret most owners don't realize: smaller Montana sapphires can still be extremely valuable, because fine quality material is scarce. Even stones under 1 carat can sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars if the color and clarity are right. Larger stones with excellent color and no treatment can push values dramatically higher. Origin is the silent multiplier. Documentation showing Montana origin increases value significantly. Yogo Gulch stones, when verified, sit in a category of their own. Collectors trust them, jewelers respect them, investors compete for them. Common Montana sapphires exist, of course: pale stones with grayish tones, heavy inclusions, or poor cuts may only bring modest prices. These are the stones people think of when they say, "Oh, those aren't worth much." But rare examples exist alongside them, often mixed together in old collections, jars, and inherited boxes. And here's where the fear sets in, because unless you know what to look for, you could easily mistake a valuable sapphire for an ordinary blue stone. Montana sapphires are extremely hard, ranking just below diamond. They feel dense in the hand, heavier than glass, heavier than quartz. When light hits them, it doesn't scatter wildly. It holds, glows, and returns with a calm intensity. The surface, even when uncut, often shows smooth crystal faces or rounded edges from river wear. Colors are rarely inky dark. Instead, they feel alive, clear, airy. Some show tiny natural inclusions that look like silk or fingerprints deep inside, signs of natural formation rather than flaws. But here's the cliffhanger most people miss: some of the most valuable Montana sapphires don't look impressive at first glance. Their magic reveals itself only after cleaning, proper lighting, or professional evaluation, which means countless stones have already been discarded by people who didn't know what they were holding. Prices tell the rest of the story. Entry-level Montana sapphires may sell for a few $100s. Fine quality stones can range from $1,000 to several thousand per carat. Exceptional untreated yogos, with strong color and clarity, can exceed $10,000 per carat. Rare colors, large sizes, and documented origin push prices even higher. Collectors aren't just buying stones, they're buying American heritage, they're buying scarcity, they're buying a gemstone whose supply will never increase. No new major discoveries are expected. What exists is what exists, and that finality changes everything. The market is shifting. More collectors want stones with traceable origin and ethical sourcing. Montana sapphires check every box. No overseas uncertainty, no mass production, no synthetic confusion, just earth, time, and American land. But here's the warning few people hear until it's too late. The moment a stone is altered, damaged, or improperly cut, value can drop permanently. Well-meaning owners have ruined valuable sapphires by trying to polish them at home, drilling holes, or mounting them without evaluation. Others sold them quickly, unaware of what they truly had, locking in regret they can never undo. If you own old stones, inherited jewelry, or loose gems with vague stories about Montana, rivers, or found stones, now is the moment to stop and look again. Clean them gently, observe them under natural light, feel their weight, and most importantly, don't assume anything, because the Montana sapphire is not flashy wealth, it's quiet wealth. It waits, it hides, it passes through hands unnoticed until the right person finally recognizes it. And once recognized, it changes everything. Some viewers listening right now already own one, they just don't know it yet, and that realization alone is enough to make the heart race, enough to make you want to check every drawer, every box, every forgotten pouch before it's too late. The market is heating up. Demand is rising, supply is frozen in time, and the stones aren't announcing themselves, they're waiting. So before you toss anything aside, before you dismiss another old rock, take a closer look, because history has already proven this once, and it's proving it again right now. The most valuable treasures are often the ones hiding in plain sight, and if the stone was hiding in your life all along, the next discovery might be even closer than you think.